to yet another episode of Family with Judy. As usual, with me I have Caroline and I have Judy, the family lawyer. So it's been quite a journey. Season now, the second season, and I think something Judy, our viewers would want to know outside of this kind of thing. What else do you do as a family lawyer?
Thank you, Ken. So apart from sharing legal information, like we have been in those 2 seasons, I also attend court representing clients almost on a daily basis. But more than that, I advise clients on a one-to-one basis. And I should say that the advising of clients on a one-to-one basis takes up more of my day than even attending court. Yes.
Judy, there are a number of people who, for one reason or another, are unable to see a lawyer for consultation. So allow me to ask you a question on their behalf. For instance, someone comes to your office. They say, I'm not talking to my spouse. I'm worried about my marriage and the children. What would you advise?
Good question, Carol. But let me start by saying that no 2 families are the same. No 2 cases are alike. However, in the scenario you have represented in a general sense, I can say the following. That when people present with issues in their marriage, of course, their concerns are not just about the possibility that the marriage could be lost. It could also be about their safety, and it most always is concerns about what happens, to their children. So for me, I start by asking for information so that I can have information enough to advise. And the next thing I do is, together with the person, assess whether the situation is so grave that they will need to exit the home, because where there is threat to life or limb, then there is nothing else that matters other than securing the person's lives. Okay, so that's where we start from. Once we establish that there is no threat, immediate threat, then one of the other things that I ask is whether people have gone through therapy, whether the person in front of me has gone through therapy, because, like I said, one of the things I now know is that divorce will never be an easy process, but also that therapy helps people understand others, because you see, many of us get into marriage expecting that the other person will of necessity see things from where we see them, from the perspective we see it.
Right.
And many persons have been assisted through therapy to see that there could be different perspectives. There always is different perspectives on an issue, but that's not the end. That does not need to be the end of the marriage, right?
Is this, I recall we were talking about the upbringing.
Yeah, bringing,
and the fact that we all come from such different spaces and different foundations.
Yeah.
So no 2 people are alike, and I believe what you're saying is therapy could actually make you see the other way of the other person.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So that's what therapy does. It helps you see whether you have fundamental misalignment, or whether if you accommodated the viewpoint of the other person and the fact that they may not see things the way, in fact, they don't see things the way you see them, but that does not mean that you can't remain married, whether that will help. In some instances, that helps a lot. In other instances, people are able to establish through therapy that they are fundamentally unaligned or misaligned, as the case may be.
Right.
And so even as they exit the union, they carry with them the knowledge that the marriage did not end because the other person was bad or themselves were bad, but because they're simply not aligned. And that makes it so much easier. So that's the first thing that we ask about. So I'm happy to say that more and more people have undergone therapy before they come into my office for consultation. So that's also a plus. So if they've undergone that, then I don't ask them to go to therapy. But then the next thing I ask them is whether they would like to go through mediation. And mediation simply is a process where you meet with a neutral third party called a mediator who needs to be trained so they understand what mediation is all about, and they help you discuss whatever issues that you have. And so we do a lot of referrals to mediators. I am also a mediator, but I cannot mediate in a matter that where I've been consulted, because then I'm no longer neutral. Okay, so we refer externally to mediators. And many people have been able to sit around the table with a mediator and sort out, their issues. Many a mediator have reported to me that, this couple that you sent to me or this person you sent to me were able to sit, they were able to discuss with the other party and agree on how to work out their issues, and they are now together. But it could also be that through the mediation, because you have an open discussion, and I always say that in mediation, for most couples, it's the first time that they hear one another. Because in most cases, in homes or in relationships, what people do when they're having a disagreement is wait for the other person to finish so that they may give their side of the story. And I don't know whether you know this, but the female gender does very well because, we have the facts and the figures, okay? But with a mediator, the mediator is able to bring down the walls. A skilled mediator is able to do that. Bring down the walls, let you see that nobody is going to be the winner in this process. Let you see that your truth is valid. Your truth is valid. So it's not about who is the right or wrong. Validate where you're coming from, but also make you go to the point where you need to get to. If we hold that your truth is valid and your truth is valid, how do we still resolve the issue at the table? So mediation is an excellent, excellent way of resolving conflict.
I think we may have addressed this in the prior episode, but what is the difference between mediation and therapy? Because they sound very... So at this point, it sounds like in both cases you're talking to a third party to understand a little bit better of your relationship, or at least get an outside viewpoint. Okay,
that's a good question. You know that therapy involves psychology. Okay. And you might ask me, does mediation not involve psychology? But I think, therapy is deeper. In that way. I think it goes, deeper into yourself, understanding where you're coming from, understanding why perhaps you respond the way you do, stuff like that. It's more like about yourself. And, many of us need somebody to help us get into ourselves. But mediation is about the issue on the table. There is conflict between the two of you. And by the way, you can even have therapy even when there is no conflict, between the two of you. But mediation is about an issue between the two of you and how to resolve that issue. And what I can tell you is a difference between a court process or a court judgment and mediation. When a court hears a matter, it determines the matter. It says, for example, Ken, you will take 50% of this, and Carol, you will take 50% of that. You don't have a choice about it. It has made the determination, you live with it, okay? And if you don't live with it, there are consequences to it. You can even be put into civil jail for disobedience of a court order. Now, mediation on the other side moves to resolve the conflict. Because you see, once a court determines, you're still unhappy, but you don't have a choice. You see, you could also go to the Court of Appeal or wherever it is, okay, because you feel, why should I take 50% of this? But in mediation, you resolve the conflict. So the conflict is gone because it's you saying, I'm okay. I'll take even 20% of this. Okay, for the sake of peace, I'll take 20% of this. You know how deep that is? When you yourself say, I will take this. So mediation is a deeper, better process because it resolves conflict. And now I'll tell you something about the court decisions that we get. And of course, I do court all the time. Sometimes we have no choice. Just think about a family setting in the village somewhere. The court has determined that this land will be divided this way. Those people are going to go back to that village where they live together as neighbors. Can you imagine the level of conflict? Can you imagine the level of conflict that will continue to be there? If your chicken goes across, it could even be killed. You know what I mean? You actually remain fearful of that person, your neighbor. But mediation helps you ventilate, get out what it is, what issues that you have, put them on the table. And then after you put them on the table, then you decide what you can live with. So if I decide that I'm moving my boundary from here to here, I'm doing so willingly, you see. So our relationship continues as good neighbors. And it's the same thing in a family situation. So I cannot tell you how important mediation is. It is a very key component of conflict resolution in family.
Are there instances where mediation has failed and a couple now resorted to court, or vice versa, when they take a case to court and then decide halfway that they're going to seek the services of a mediator?
Indeed. So many times, sometimes mediation fails, okay, because people just can't agree. And so, of course, we let people pursue their rights in court. But even when you go to court in family matters, almost always the judge or magistrate will ask you, have you tried to sort this matter amicably? Okay. So sometimes the court will actually say, this is a matter that you can sort out. So please go to mediation, because we also have court annexed mediation. It's about the only service that I know that the government gives for free, mediation. So if you agree, because it's a voluntary process, nobody can force you into it. If you agree to go to mediation, the court just refers you to the mediation registry and you get appointed for a mediator. And the mediator is given in the first instance 60 days to mediate. And if they need an extension of 10 days, they are given. Many matters are resolved that way. So even through the court process, you can still get into mediation. But I was telling you what I do when people come to my office. So then we refer them to mediation. So some clients are willing to go to mediation, others are not, because like I said, it's voluntary. Okay, for those who are willing, then we send them off to mediation, they succeed or they don't succeed. And out of the mediation process, you can get a mediation settlement agreement, a mediation agreement that puts forth the agreement that you have regarding the matters that are in issue. Okay, and that agreement can actually be adopted in court, and it becomes a very strong judgment. Because once you have agreed on to something and gone and tell the court, this is how we want to resolve this, it's going to be very difficult in the future to apply to review that decision, because it was your decision. Okay, but if you don't then succeed on mediation or don't want to go to mediation, what is it that we do for you? So we process you for divorce if that's what you require. We process you for child custody if that's what is in issue, or division of matrimonial property and all those things. But like I said, I think at the beginning of our episodes, even if you're going to go through divorce, you don't have to wash your dirty linen in public. And there's a lot of dirty linen in most marriages. I mean, that's human nature, which you could hang to dry. And you would look like the better person if this person has done all these things. But guess what? Nobody wins in a marriage that's gone bad. So we tell people, don't wash dirty linen, because when you do wash the dirty linen, the other person will do the best they can to defend themselves, including also getting some linen to hang about you. And then in the course of that, you even forget that perhaps you should be co-parenting. You should be doing other things together. So we tell people, marriage breakdown will always be a very difficult process. You owe it to yourselves to mitigate the process of breakup. So how do you mitigate? By choosing grounds like irretrievable breakdown of marriage, on the basis, for example, that you've been apart for 2 years, and where you don't have 2 years, you can actually decide to stay away from each other for 2 years, so that you heal, so that you go through therapy, and time helps a lot, and so that then there is less need to wash the linen.
And it sounds like at the end of the day, if you're airing your dirty
Yeah.
then and there are kids involved, for example, there are children involved, they will suffer the shame. They will suffer the don't suffering throughout this. It sounds like.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, because you guys just think about it this way. Children are born between two persons, and they think that is going to be their reality for life,
Correct.
isn't it? They don't know this life without their two parents together. So what does it feel like when they see that their parents are breaking apart and they don't know what to do? They're helpless because children are helpless. They go to school, and as they're in school, they're thinking, maybe I'll find my father has moved out or my mother has moved out. Those in boarding school go away for like 3 months. And they're most like, gosh, will I find my parents together? Can you imagine that fear? It's so unfair to place that burden on the children. And that's why mediation is so important, because in mediation, you're able to agree on, okay, the end is inevitable. The marriage is going to come to an end. But you don't have to move out today. Let the children come home for the holidays. Okay, let us sit them together, sit them down together and tell them this is what has happened. Let us assure them that even though we are not together, we still love them. Okay, so we'll still be their base, even though separate. Okay, and maybe even then separate during that process. Maybe they can even go with whoever is moving out, whether it's mommy or daddy, to the new house so that they can identify their bedrooms. You know, there is less insecurity that way on the part of the child. So that's why mediation is critical, because you determine when you will part, how you will part, but also how the people who are affected by this will be taken along so that they also feel involved in that decision and less traumatized. So for children, out of the mediation, we have what we call parental responsibility agreements. In the parental responsibility, we set out who is going to have the custody of the children. If you remember, we talked about 2 levels of custody. We talked about legal custody, which is who will make decisions over the children. Now, the law says internationally, the world over, that both parents should have the right to make decisions over their children. And it's not everyday decisions. It's like schooling, it's like immigration, it's like medical. If it's not an emergency, both parents should be able to make those decisions together. I always say there must be a reason why God dictated that no one person can have a child alone. Okay, so then you will, most of the time, parties will agree that they should have joint legal custody. Exceptionally, there can be sole legal custody, meaning one parent is making decisions alone, but only if it's in the child's best interest. Then there is the actual custody or physical custody, which answers to in whose place will the children be on this day, this week, that week. That's the actual custody. So that's the other thing that the parental responsibility agreement provides for. And then some people would say the crux of the matter. I say not. Who will provide what? In terms of the money, you know, many people call it the bottom line. Who provide what? That's also very important. Once that agreement is in place, and it can also contain principles like the recognition that if you are part, you are likely to meet other people in this life. And so some of the things that people want to agree on is at what point should you introduce those other people into the children's lives. And so the agreement here will almost always say that you can only introduce a significant other. You know, not a person you met last week or last night, and then you come and introduce them to the children. A significant other, but also that you will have told the other parent so that they can prepare the children. Because when the children come and meet the significant other, guess what? When they go to the other side, they're going to be talking about that person. So imagine if the other parent doesn't know, how is she supposed or he supposed to help you or help the children, understand that, Yeah, so those are some of the things. And then, of course, for some people, religion is important. So they talk about it. They agree on the child being exposed to a certain religion, For other people, there could be even just respect for the grandparents, visiting grandparents and stuff like that. Principles that help in co-parenting. So that's called a parental responsibility agreement. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and actually, it's interesting. I don't think we ever discussed about the money part.
Yeah.
Or we did not go into any detail.
We can now.
Now we're saying within mediation, then you can actually you can agree. Now, what does the court enforce if at all you decided not to go through the mediation process?
Okay, very interesting. So, if you don't agree, no mediation process, then the person who has reason to complain. I always say this: the person that goes to court is the one who has reason to complain.
Correct.
Okay. So many times the person who's not providing the maintenance and who's supposed to provide and is not paying school fees, is not providing accommodation or food, is quite happy with the status quo. So the one who goes is the one who is bearing the cost of that without the other one providing. So that person who has reason to complain, it could be the mother, it could be the father. Most of the time it's the mother, because the children are probably with her. Then that person goes to court and says, the children have both of us for parents, whether you're married or not, it doesn't matter. And the children have the following needs, financial needs. So you list them, from accommodations, schooling, food, extras, at school, transport, grooming, name it, you list them. And then that you're proposing and that they have attempted to get you to pay your portion and you have declined, and so they're asking the court to help them get you to pay. So then the court asks that they serve the documents on you, the ones that they have filed, and then you come to court, and the court will want to know why are you not providing for the children? And the person will probably come and say, I don't have work, I don't earn that amount of money, whatever it is. But the court will tell you there is an obligation on every parent, even the person who begs in the street, to provide for the children. Okay, there is no choice. So where the court can, they will ask people to file like their affidavit of means, like what do you do, what kind of income do you have, and stuff like that, so that they can then be able to establish who should be paying what. Now, the rule of the thumb, and I think we said that the last time, is that both parents have an equal responsibility to provide. So that's a starting point. But every case, as I said, turns on its own facts. So there'll be those with less capacity than others, with much less capacity than others. Okay, so the court, of course, then uses its discretion to see what should be done in every particular case.
And it's a very interesting scenario, because sometimes, for example, you say the children are going to somewhat, let's say, a more affluent or more expensive private school. Now, in point of separation, the income of one parent is less than the other, so the expectation for that parent to be supporting that class of life, I don't know how the court looks at that. I'm very curious.
Yes, so life happens. So no agreement is cast in stone, even a mediation agreement is expected that if circumstances were to change, like for example, you could lose your employment or you could lose your business, as has happened, then you can come back to court and say, I can't pay for the children at this level, I can pay for them at this level. It is expected that the children's right to education will be fulfilled by the parents. So even if you couldn't take them to the expensive private school, you need to be able to show the court that nonetheless you will ensure that they will continue to receive an education. So sometimes it happens that life has happened to one parent, the other one is still capable. So then the courts will say, if he's capable of paying school fees, for example, at a school, which is 100,000 or 50,000 a term, then let him contribute that, and the other parent can pay the enhanced fees, so to speak. So there is that fairness and democracy, if you like, in determining that.
Actually, another scenario, if you don't mind me bringing this up. So basically, one partner meets another person who is doing a whole lot better, and so their life elevates. And so that's, they're the ones who are providing the smaller amount, but now the life has changed for them. Is there a requirement at that point, if they're married to someone who's more, I don't want to use the word successful, because we know money is not success, but it's who has better means, let's call it that. What happens in that case? Is there, should we review the agreement, or how does that work?
No, you see that parent, as long as the two parents are there, that other person that has married or become a partner to one of the parents is not obliged to provide for the children. However, if he's willing, he can do that. Once he does that, then he becomes responsible to that extent, so that he can't put them, for example, in an expensive school, and then tomorrow say now he's annoyed with the partner, he doesn't want to pay. He has to pay because it's in the best interest of the children that they continue. So you take on a responsibility, you better be serious about it, because your discontinuation of that is going to affect the children.
Correct.
Yeah, so you don't have to, but when you do, by all means, just know it's a serious responsibility. Yeah.
Has there been an instance where a third party brought a case to you or maybe to court, saying that a child or children are not safe, or their interests are not being taken care of by any or both of the parents?
Oh, yes. It happens. The Children's Act actually allows people other than the parents to intervene on behalf of the children. Yes, because the best interests of the children are paramount. And so if a person, many times the grandparents or siblings who are concerned about how the children are being brought up by their parents or being neglected, or they have approached courts, for appropriate orders as the case may be. Yeah.
And I would assume it's not just matters regarding children that people bring to you, it's matters regarding property. How do we tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question too. So, when a person is feeling off in a family situation or something that has happened, so everything that has to do with that union becomes an issue on which they want advice. So one of the areas, of course, is property, perhaps that they have acquired together. And so that's one of the matters too that we refer to mediation. And many people are able to agree on how to separate their properties. Okay, if that one is never going to be an easy thing. Again, you can imagine you build your home expecting to be in your home forever and ever.
Oh, yes.
You've got your footprint perhaps on the concrete, outside there.
Exactly.
Then things happen, and that truth does not hold. You see, so it's a very difficult thing, but still people have been able to mediate and agree. Let's have the family home. Let whoever is staying with the children should remain in the family home, and the other person can seek shelter elsewhere. But there are many cases where people do not agree, and those ones then get escalated to court. So if it is division of the property, that can only happen after divorce. You're not allowed to file for division of matrimonial property before the divorce. And even then, you have to file it within 1 year of being divorced. Otherwise, your case is time barred. But if you need...
So you get a divorce, that's finalized. So within the first year, you have to
file for division of property. If you don't, then your case is time barred. It will take a lot of intervention for you to get the court to agree to extend the time. You have to have a good reason. But if you need intervention by the court, like for example, somebody is evicting you from the matrimonial home, you can go to court even though you're not divorced, even though you have not filed a case for divorce, so that you can seek orders to sustain you in the matrimonial home. If there is fear of disposal, charging, or whatever it is of the matrimonial home by the other spouse, then you can go to court even though you are not divorced. By the way, the law says that you cannot evict somebody, a spouse, from the matrimonial home without a court order. So that's extremely important. If you're attempting to evict them, then the court will certainly protect them. So thank you, viewers. It's been a great 2 seasons of sharing legal information. We hope that we have made it easier, more accessible, and you hope you will join us in the next season of this show. Thank you.